welcome to our third unit record report webinar. This is the final in the series, and we're excited to provide you with this overview of the unit record. All right. Presenting this morning will be Marla Skelly, who is our Associate Director for Compliance here at WASAC. And my name is Ann Voiles. I am the Program Associate for the Financial Aid Division. Also with us today are members of our Unit Record Review Team, and Nisha Griffiths is our Receivables Coordinator. Nisha, do you want to say hello?
Good morning.
And Debbie Jackson, who is the Assistant Director for the State Work Study Program.
Good morning.
Very good. Calvin Romaker is a new member of our review team. He isn't on screen this morning, but we wanted to be sure that you may see him reaching out to you as we review your unit records. Once again, Marla Skelly and I myself. With that, I just want to do a little bit of housekeeping, let you know that we do have the Q&A available for you. If you have any questions, periodically we will review those questions and try to answer them on screen. There may be a moment or two where a response is typed out and sent back to you. The chat should be unavailable, and we ask that you use the Q&A at this point. With that, I'm going to go ahead and turn the program over to Marla Skelly.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the final presentation on the 23-24 unit record. My name's Marla Skelly, and as Ann said, I'm the Associate Director for Compliance. I've been in the financial aid world about 38 years. Can't believe it's been that long. This is the 55th year of the unit record. I believe it's that old. It is the same, it's been in existence the same as the Washington College Grant, which you all formally know as the State Need Grant. What the unit record provides for WASAC is institutional comparisons across the state, where we're able to compare not just sector types, but individual institutions like institutions or all institutions. It measures the needs of our students, which is really important when we start getting questions from our external partners like the legislature. We rely on the information that you provide on a yearly basis for the day advocating on behalf of our students. It allows us to look at unmet need. It allows us to see the kind of aid that institutions are providing. It informs potential changes to state aid programs through the modeling that we do to look at proposed changes. It's basically a centralized data repository that we can use to provide a variety of reports. It minimizes the request for ad hoc reporting. So we just have the ability to provide information to our partners because we have it in our database. The timeline for the unit record this year, the manual is available electronically at the WASAC website, and you can see the URL here. In the month of August, we are providing the unit record trainings. The portal training website is available right now for file testing and practice of all the unit record features. If you have any issues with that testing, please let us know. The unit record needs to be finalized October 14th, and your reports are due. The reviewers then will review the information you've submitted in October and November. And the hope is that we will be able to finalize that report before the beginning of the legislative session in 2025. This last year was challenging for everyone. And so we were able to add Nisha, Debbie, and now Calvin for the upcoming year to help address the length of time it takes to review these reports. So we are very hopeful that in January, we will be done, have it wrapped up, and the institutional profiles that you receive will be available. The manual is basically set up into 5 sections. You've got your introduction, which I personally find pretty informative. It lays out the changes that happened over the past year pretty succinctly. And then you have your chapter 1, 2, and 3. And then the last piece is the appendices. And the appendices really hold a lot of really good information. So I would absolutely make sure you review those. In the appendices, you have information on what the need-based and non-need-based programs you need to report are. B is the record layout, the file format, and valid inputs. And C is system edits that prevent file upload and import, and basically talks about all of the edits. You want to make sure you understand what those are. And then there's a quick lookup by financial aid program and a quick lookup by the unit record report field name. This is the most important part where all the details are laid out. You need to build, as all of you know, the CSV file that you will then submit through the portal. You'll report the files in the updated CSV layout format with the header row, and the header row that we provided needs to be the one that you use. We want you to report only students who receive financial aid based on the 23-24 FAFSA or WASFA. And for those of you who are new, the WASFA acronym stands for Washington Application for State Financial Aid. Generally speaking, that this is provided for undocumented students. We have a sample CSV format on our website, and take a look at what those are. You can see it in the manual. The other thing I'll say is make sure that you review chapter 2 of the manual for all the field definitions. And then the record layout in Appendix B and C to determine valid field content. The first step is to determine which students you need to report. We're looking for need-based recipients where the 23-24 FAFSA or WASFA was required in order to award. Need-based recipients from other programs where the FAFSA or WASFA may be applied. And then non-need-based federal loan recipients, those people who receive federal direct unsubsidized loans, federal parent loans, and federal Grad Plus loans. We're trying to get at a high level all of the right students into the report. And there are 3 categories of reportable aid: need-based with FAFSA, need-based with FAFSA where it may or may not be required, and student loans. Examples of those may not need FAFSA would be things like the WASOS BA scholarship and the SBCT opportunity scholarships. On need-based recipients, our intention is to capture all financial aid disbursements in a unit record report. For this year, of course, you're going to be including all financial aid received on the basis of the 23-24 FAFSA or WASFA. For 24-25, you'll be reporting on that year's FAFSA or WASFA. And just a preliminary note, 24-25 is going to be significantly different, as you all know, with the changes to the simplified FAFSA. So we will be making significant changes to this presentation next year. This slide reports the programs you need to report. You can read this as well as I, and you'll be getting a copy of this PowerPoint slide so you can review any slides that you need to. one reminder I do want to make is that in order for undocumented students to receive state work study, they must have a valid work authorization. And also, teacher shortage conditional grant is not to be confused with the student teaching grant. The rest of these listed on this slide are those programs with which you should be familiar. Need-based recipients in other programs are programs such as the Federal Teach Grant, Worker Retraining, Need-Based Institutional Gift, and WASO scholarships, as I mentioned before. This helps provide a complete picture of what student financial aid looks like in the state of Washington. We do want you to report federal non-need-based loans so that we also get a picture of the kinds of overall aid our need-based students are receiving. So if you do have students who receive the unsubsidized plus or grad plus programs, we want you to report those. The BFET, or Basic Food Employment and Training Funds, are a subset of the Worker Retraining Funds. If your college receives these funds, we want you to report them under the Worker Retraining Funds. Report these if it's easy for you to get to them. If not, you don't need to report those, but we would like you to report them as workforce training funds. There's a change for the 23-24 unit record CSV header, and that changes. Last year we called the bridge grant the WC bridge, and that is incorrect. So we updated it this year, and it will read as WA bridge. There are also some functional improvements that we made. A refinement to the override comment edit capability, which we hope will serve you all and well. There were some error code changes as well for 23-24. The error on total need-based aid exceeds the reported need amount was an informational item in the 22-23 unit record. This year, it is an overridable error. So that means that the institutions are going to have to review each of those errors and provide information as to why you overwrote it if you did. Enrollment does not match need duration has been removed as a standard error message. We will still be scrutinizing any of these situations on a case-by-case basis. So you may be hearing from us on that, but we found that we do have other edits out there that helps us identify where these mismatches occur. I'll refer you to pages 3 and 4 in the manual for additional details on these changes. Announcements for the 24-25 unit record report in the portal. You should all be aware of the Washington College Grant Connect program. It's under discussion now because that particular program does not require the FAFSA or WASFA. Should it be reported as part of WCG or have its own row on the unit record report? We're just getting clarification on that and identifying how we want that to go. So you will learn when that decision is made. The Washington College Grant Apprenticeship and Native American Apprenticeship may become unit record reportable in 24-25 or 25-26, but it is not reportable on the 23-24 unit record. There's always potential for the addition of new state-funded aid programs that may be enacted by the legislature. Specific details are announced as soon as they are available and as soon as we know that they will be new programs. There are required rows on the CSV file And as noted here, the revised sample is available. All financial aid recipients should have these required fields reported. Things like Social Security number, last name, first name, enrollment, rejected ICER or WASFA transaction, year in school. You need to report non-need-based aid received for all need-based recipients. So if they have $1 of need, you need to report them on the unit record. This helps us see the entire package that students are awarded. Financial aid may be reported for each of the 5 terms based on the 23-24 FAFSA. So those of you who are quarter schools, you may be a summer 1, fall, winter, spring, or summer 2, fall, winter, spring. So if you're semesters, you'll be summer, fall, and spring. So you know what your calendar is, and that needs to be reported. Clock hour schools may report aid for both summer terms if it's warranted for that institution. If the recipient enrolls in more than one term in, say, one summer, we want you to report the total amount received and enrollment status as one enrollment term. So mini session 1 and mini session 2 should be reported together. Review chapter 2 of the manual for more detailed information. Additional fields that need to be reported are listed on this slide. A few years ago, we implemented the ICER WASFA transaction number. That helps us make sure to look at the appropriate transaction or FAFSA that you awarded from. Rejected ICER WASFA, family size, marital status, EFC, cost of attendance, need duration, and need amount are all required fields. Special notes about certain of the fields follow here. Social Security numbers, it's how we identify the appropriate student. So as you can imagine, duplicates are not accepted. Files containing duplicate SSNs will not upload. We had in the 22-23 year, we really had a large number of transpositions on the Social Security numbers. And Anne will talk about this more when we get to it. But the discrepancy reports that you will see in the course of updating the unit record will help you identify these mismatched Social Security numbers. I think this year we had more awards made to the same student because of different Social Security numbers than I've seen since I started. So it's really important that you see these and fix them prior to submitting if you're able to. We don't want you to use invalid Social Security number sequences. They'll be flagged. Don't use numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, all 9s, all 2s, etc. The Social Security numbers of the Washington College Grant, CBS, Passport to College, and Bridge recipients are compared to what's listed in Seesaw. And if there's discrepancy, you should see that in the discrepancy report. The other WASAC applications like Teachers, WAVE, National Guard are compared to what's in the portal. So this is where the discrepancy reports that you will see are really vital and important. Guidance for resolution of SSN issues are included in the unit record manual, and I would encourage you to take a look at those. So to reiterate, SSNs have to match between the unit record and Seesaw or the obligation tracker records. And if there are any discrepancies, you'll need to contact us to correct the links to ensure the data and history is correct. You'll primarily work with Anne on some of these if you're not able to resolve them. This slide depicts the year in school translations. These are what is also used on the FAFSA in terms of year in school. Other considerations for the year in school is don't automatically use the year in school that was reported on the FAFSA or WASFA. Students very often, especially if they're graduating high school seniors, will say, oh, I'm a senior. Well, that's not true. So make sure that you use the year in school that you have in your systems. Report the highest year in school for which the student attended when the student's financial aid was dispersed. So if they were one of the students who maybe moves from sophomore to junior and you disperse aid as a junior, then they would be given a year in school of a junior. Code 8 or other used to report not need-based aid for running start students or other non-matriculated students in your system. Family size needs to be reported. Generally, that's reported from the FAFSA or WASFA. If they're a dependent student, it must be higher than 2, and if they're an independent student, it needs to be higher than 1. If you indicate that, if they indicated that they're married, it must be 2 or higher. Number in college must be 1 or higher, and it cannot exceed the family size. Now, parents' enrollment generally is not included in the need calculation, but you do have the ability to do a professional judgment if you deem that the parent should be included. Make sure if you do any PJs that you reprocess the FAFSA and WASFA and get Seesaw updated. We want you to report the family income, taxable and untaxable, based on a review of the 23-24 FAFSA or WASFA. Generally, the income will be reported from the 21 income from the FAFSA or WASFA. Again, if you use a professional judgment to change that income, make sure that you reprocess the FAFSA and so that the information matches what you've awarded on in both Seesaw and on the FAFSA from which you paid. Report integers without dollar signs or cents. And just so you know, this is the only place on the unit record where negative numbers can be used. So if they have a negative income, please report that negative income. For expected family contribution, we would like you to use the federal methodology calculation that is produced by the U.S. Department of Ed based on the 23-24 FAFSA or WASFA. Report the federal methodology EFC even if you have institutional methodology that produces a different EFC. Institutional methodology is generally used for institutional only dollars. This, as I said, may be adjusted by professional judgment decisions. Just make sure you reprocess that FAFSA. It should reflect the number of months reported in the need duration. So if for some reason you change the need duration from 9, which is standard, to more or less, you need to make sure that the EFC is reflected on that need duration. And cost of attendance, most campuses use several budgets to reflect changes in living expenses, like at home with parent and off campus. Those are separate budgets generally. We want you to report the student budget amount related to the need amount, and it should be based on the number of months reported in the need duration. There's a theme here. The EFC cost of attendance and duration must match. If you have 9 months, then 9 months is great. If it's 6 and you've made that change, make sure all 3 elements have a 6-month duration if that's the change you made. This is the standard calculation to determine need. Cost minus EFC equals need amount. You don't want to report negative values in the need amount. It's 0 or higher. If you do provide a negative number, we'll change it to 0. Over awards flagged when the COA minus EFC minus the EFA, the estimated financial assistance, equals, and if it equals that's an over award if it equals a negative need, and that will be flagged as an error in 23-24. Need duration is based on the number of months for which the need amount and cost of attendance were reported. So normally integers from 1 to 12, the standard being 9. If you have a 9-month budget set up and the student leaves after 1 term, for example, they're not required to recalculate everything to the 3-month duration. You can, but it's not required. But if you do change one element, then all the budget components must be adjusted to match. It needs to be consistent for the same time period. This is a depiction of the term enrollment status. This is just the standard. Yours for the 23-24 should be similar to this. For the main state scholarship programs, Washington College Grant, College Bound, Passport, and Bridge Grant, we want you to report the final awards and enrollment levels of the student at the time of disbursement. The unit record reporting tool checks awards against the Seesaw records, and this is what generates that discrepancy report. We want you to review the WCG, CBS, and Passport differences report to verify all recipients and awards are correctly reported. The tuition waiver dollars for 23-24 give us an accurate representation of all forms of assistance that needy students are receiving. But we want you to include the full assessed tuition and fee amounts in each student's cost of attendance to reflect tuition prior to the application of those waivers. And you should be reporting waivers as a financial aid resource in the appropriate field. They'll either be need-based institutional gift aid or non-need-based institutional gift aid. So make sure you're reporting them in the appropriate category. We want you to report on-campus and off-campus employment separately. Report the student's total gross earnings, including employer match or institutional share. You also need to include summer employment, and you're going to be reporting either actual gross earnings based on the monthly cutoff dates or institutional payroll dates, or average gross term earnings over the academic year for all terms the student was enrolled at least half time. The total amount needs to be very close to what was reported in the final recon to State Work Study program staff. State Work Study staff review the section of the unit record for accuracy and may contact the school if there are significant differences between the reporting and the year-end recon records they have. As mentioned earlier, there are 2 types of institutional gift aid. It's either need-based gift aid, where the FAFSA or WASFA is required in order to award, or non-need-based institutional gift aid, which is basically non-need-based aid. There are other state-funded gift assistance programs. An example of those are listed on this slide, but things like the American Indian Endowed Scholarship, Global Opportunity Grant at UW, Gold Star Book Stipend, Washington Scholars. So be aware and list these under other state-funded gift assistance.
Carla,
Yes.
before we move on, we do have a question in the Q&A. Enrollment level reported at time of dispersal, even for those who later withdrew and had an R2 T4 completed, so that later their enrollment level is not enrolled. I am just confirming to ensure that I updated errors accurately. Thank you, and thank you for this presentation.
Thank you for that question. The enrollment level should be reported at whatever their enrollment was before you perform the R2T4. If we question it, we'll let you know, but they have to show some sort of enrollment level, and it should match what the disbursement of the state aid was. I hope that makes sense. We're moving on now to the edit section, just to give you some important information about edits generally. We often get asked, why do you need these edits? Basically, they help ensure the data quality. We need to have basic edits where we can compare information to make sure it's consistent. In 23-24, we are only going to have the 2 informational edits, and these are edits we've had for a long number of years. If the date of birth is outside expected range, and if the expected family contribution is outside the expected range. So people who were born in, say, 1942, for example, they exist, but they're outside our range, so you'll get an informational error. Just verify it, or look and say, oh yeah, that's okay. You don't need, no action needs to be taken. Appendix C lists all the edit errors and what action needs to take place. But there are errors that will prevent the file upload, and I'm referring you to Appendix C, which is on page 82 in the manual. Some examples of errors that prevent upload are things like the header row is missing or invalid, duplicate SSNs, invalid codes, blanks reported in required fields. And for example, that means if you have a blank rejected ICER WASFA field, it'll reject. We just had one from an institution, a question when they were uploading a file in the training database, and it wouldn't load. And we learned that all of the field headers had been concatenated, so they weren't exactly what was in the sample files. So make sure that if you're having it's not loading for some reason, make sure that your headers are listed exactly as the sample file has them. There are 12 items that will prevent file upload. Make sure you review all 12. There are some non-overridable or must-fix errors, and they're listed below and also in Appendix C, pages 82 through 85. A non-resident with WCG or other state aid, that absolutely needs to be fixed. Number in college is greater than family size, or no valid institutional state work study allocation in the portal. Make sure that you fix those, or the system won't load it unless you fix them. And there are some overridable errors. Again, Appendix C, pages 82 to 85. If the need amount is 0 with need-based aid. So for example, if the budget changed and there were dropped credits, you want to look at that and put in some sort of comment or fix it. You're in school for aid type. We have this frequently, and that's where the student graduated mid-year and stayed at your institution and moved from an undergrad to a graduate student. And then cost of attendance minus expected family contribution is calculated by the EDIT program, does not equal need amount that's reported by the college. So please review all of these examples so you'll be familiar with what may be affecting your unit record. So just some reminders on your edits. Keep your override comments brief, but with sufficient detail to directly explain your edit response. What makes sense to you might not make sense to us, and we may ask you for clarification. Report your family income using the WCG income calculation, not the federal total income field from the FAFSA without appropriate adjustments. Income reported in Seesaw for the 23-24 year should reflect the WCG income calculation. So if you want more information on that income field, I'm referring you to pages 32 and 33 in the 2023-24 WCG CBS manual. So for example, when calculating family income for a dependent student, you count the parent's adjusted gross income and non-taxable income. You don't include the student's income. When calculating family income for an independent student, you count the student's AGI and non-taxable income and that of the spouse if the student is married. And then there are other caveats or exclusions, and those you can find on page 32 and 33. The ICER-WASFA transaction number reported should be the most recent used to award the student. It's not necessarily the last one filed. And this is so we can compare the FAFSA-WASFA to the unit record and Seesaw for discrepancies related to family income, family size, number in college, and expected family contribution. Comparisons appear in the on file tab in the unit record student record. So you can see if there's discrepant information at a glance from that on file tab. Report an adjusted expected family contribution according to need duration if the student attended less than full-time, full year, if that's your standard practice. If one element is adjusted, you must adjust all. EFC, need, COA, and need duration must be consistently aligned. We want you to report all known race categories for each student, even where Hispanic origin is marked. Why? This eliminates gaps in research data. Just some tips and best practices that we've discovered over the years and would ask you to comply with. Upload your CSV file early. Don't wait until the deadline. This is, it takes us a very long time to review the information you've provided, and very often includes a lot of back and forth before we can accept what you have submitted. So the earlier you do it and are able to review, the better for everybody. Review WASAC's 23-24 unit record manual and training materials. Test uploads using the portal training environments listed on this slide. You can see the URL. Keep in mind that when you enter data into this, you need to finish whatever testing you're doing because the training database is cleaned out nightly. Use unit record informational reports to check for consistency and validity. For the CTCs, make sure you review the SBCTC 23-24 unit record processing guides. I believe it's available now. I could be mistaken, but I do believe it's available. And we want you to contact WASAC with questions or issues that haven't been addressed in WASAC's unit record manual. So if you have a question about something, or you're it doesn't look like we have addressed something, please let us know. We update the manual as necessary throughout the year. Are there any final questions before we move to the portal?
Marla, I don't see any currently in the Q&A.
Perfect. Well, we'll give you the opportunity to ask at the end of the presentation as well. So I'm turning it over to you, Anne.
Thank you very much, Marla. What we'll do now then is, excuse me, move on to the portal application itself. There are a couple of ways to get to that portal site. At the top of the screen, you'll see the URL that takes you directly to this landing page. The other avenue is to go to the main WASAC website, and along the top there is a menu where you can select administration, and directly below that will be a link to the portal, and it will take you to the same location. Once you're here, there are a couple of ways to get to the unit record. At the bottom, you see the orange arrow points to the unit record under the financial aid administrators column, and that will log you directly into the unit record once you've entered your credentials. The other is to use the general login button, which is in the upper right-hand side, and that will take you to this main menu within the portal itself. Click on the home to the programs tab, and then select unit record from your drop-down. The list of programs will vary depending on what programs you personally have been authorized to work in. From that welcome screen, you will be asked to choose your file from this browse button, and then start your upload. I want to make note that there is a navigation bar at the top, which will show you where you are. It will highlight as you move along the process and let you know at what stage you are and how close you are to the submit. I also want to make note that if you need a copy of the CSV header sample file, it is available with a download button where the little red circle is. It says download template here. So if you need to get a copy, there are two places you can find that. One is here from this welcome page. The other is from the direct unit record web page that's on the agency website. As you are uploading your files, I do want to make sure that you are aware of this note that I have bracketed in red. If there are student records not included in your upload file for which WASAC has awards in either Seesaw or a program within the portal itself, the unit record will now auto create and add that record. It will be a blank record, and expect that you will fill in the gap information. But if we don't see that award record in your upload file, it will be auto created and added to your records. Once your file has been selected, click the Start Upload. And if your upload is successful, you'll find this notation at the top of your screen right away. If indeed there is what we call a critical error that prevents your file upload, you should see a pink box that gives you information about what type of errors are in your file. That file can be downloaded so that you can review what the errors are, make your corrections in your upload file, and then click try again. Now, I do want to mention that if the issue that's created the critical error is in your actual header row, it cannot provide you with a list of your other errors. It will just tell you that it cannot be saved due to errors. That's your clue to go back and take another look at that header row and see if there is something that's corrupted in that row, either a truncated field name or a field name that somehow got edited by mistake and needs to be fixed before and saved before you can add that file to the unit record. I want to mention here, I talked about critical errors. There are 4 different kinds of errors that can be encountered in the unit record. The critical error is the one that actually prevents your file upload, and those are the ones that you see right up front when you try to upload your file and you get that list of errors up front that need to be corrected before that upload will take place. A must fix is an error that is non-overwritable. It means that that correction needs to take place in that record and be saved once the file is uploaded to the unit record. A must fix that is not corrected will prevent your file from being submitted at the end. So that is something that needs to be addressed and not just provided with an override comment. The overridable error is one that requires either a correction or some type of an override explanation. Once you have submitted the unit record, the review staff will take a look at that. If we have additional questions, we will come back to you by reopening the unit record or writing to you by email and asking for an explanation. But that will at least allow you to move forward in your work within the unit record. The informational errors are now only 2 in number within the unit record itself. I believe those were the date of birth, and one I think had to do with an amount that was over our maximum. And those may or may not require some type of an override explanation, depending on whether or not a correction may be needed. Say if you're looking at that date of birth and you think, oh, the year that I've placed in there is incorrect, that gives you the opportunity to make that correction or to make a note about why that is correct, but it will allow you to move on. Once you are in the unit record and encounter the errors tab in this navigation bar, you will see listed on that screen all of the errors that were discovered within your file. There are several different ways to sort this list. You can sort it by any of these column headers, or you can actually filter the lists through this status or error type. And here is a screenshot of the various types of statuses. Whether you want to see all of them, just the new messages, anything that's a must fix only. So you can make a selection there and it will filter that list down. Or if you're looking at error type, you can filter the list and work on those by the error types and then move on to the next error type. In order to open a specific record, the Social Security number is highlighted in blue. Go ahead and click that and it will open the record for you to work in. Once you're in the student record, there are 4 tabs that are involved with each record: the Details tab, the Terms tab, the On File, and the Errors. And we'll go through each of these individually so you have an understanding about what you'll find in each of them. You'll notice on this screen while you're in the unit record student record, there is no highlight, which means there's no click function. And that's because all of the information you need for that student is found within this file on one of those 4 tabs. This individual student record error list is also downloadable as it is from the main error screen. But generally speaking, it's not as necessary in the student record because there are generally few of them. And you can move from one to the other without too much difficulty. You can also enter your override reasons directly in this screen. And the corrections that you make will be entered in the Terms or the Details tab. So all you can do in this particular screen is enter an override reason. Corrections actually take place in these other screens. Once you've made a comment here in the override reason or made corrections in either of these tabs, ensure that you click Save before you leave that student record. Otherwise, the unit record will not retain that data. In the Student Details tab, you will find all of the individual student information, their name, Social Security number, date of birth, their ethnicity, and all of their WASFA ICER information and the family and need information that you've entered. In order to make corrections, go directly into whatever field you need to make the change to, and then ensure that you click Save. In the Student Terms tab, you'll find all of the award information for that student that's reported in the current unit record. If you find you need to add a program award that's not shown, this is an abbreviated list. Make sure that you click this to unlock the list and then click Show All, and it will drop down the entire list of reportable programs. And you can then lock that view, and you'll find that that should lock that view, and you should be able to see all programs for all records that you are working with within that work session. If you want to see only the abbreviated list, once you've made your corrections and changes, you can unlock that and unclick the Show All, and it will go back to this abbreviated view. Same kind of corrections made directly in the fields themselves, and then click Save before you leave that record. The On File tab is actually a comparison of information that you have provided to us in your unit record report, which is in this center column. The program data is what we have at WASAC within the Seesaw records, which is shown here up at the top. And then what the obligation tracker or other program records may show if there are awards for any of these other programs. This third column off to the far right is your ICER or WASFA information, if there is any. You will see the transaction number that you have provided to us in that details page here, and the information that is populated in this column comes directly from that transaction. So if you find that you have selected the wrong transaction and the information that's reported here is incorrect, go back to the details page, update that current trans number and save it. And this should update with the correct information. You'll notice that anything that is checked in green matches across the row. If there are differences, there are red check marks that allow you to see that there is a difference. This will highlight something that you need to look at, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the information, at least especially in these upper areas, the family income, family size, number in college, and EFC that you're reporting are wrong. The reason for this is the formula that we use to report what's in the ICER WASFA may not take into account educational credits or certain items that can but not necessarily must be taken out of that family income. And what you may have reported is that family income minus, for example, those education credits. So take a look at this, and it will trigger an error if they don't match. But the reason that you would give is, why there is a difference, if indeed it's valid. If you find that you have misreported here, or that the seesaw information is incorrect, you would tell us that in your override comment, and then those corrections will be made in seesaw. Or if it's an error you've made here in the unit record, you would update that based on what you know to be accurate information. In terms of the EFC, what the ICER WASFA reported in this column shows is the 9-month duration, so that this is what I'd call an regular academic year. However, if you have reported, say, a 6-month or a 3-month need duration in your details tab, and the student is only attended for part of the year, you may have adjusted the EFC. So in that case, this would be a valid difference between the two. However, if you are reporting a 9-month need duration, we would expect to see a 9-month EFC here as well. As you are editing the student record, you can make your override reasons from that student record or from the main errors screen for your institution. In this case, the example shows the student record itself. You make sure that you click the box for that particular error, and then you can that will activate this override reason field where you can place your message and then click the override errors button. It highlights whenever you click this so that you can enter your override. And you'll see that if you've, especially if it's from the main institution error screen, if you're doing a bulk override, which I'll cover later, it will tell you how many errors you are going to apply that particular error message to. So in this case, one error is highlighted, and only one error is going to be overridden with this example. Once you have saved that override comment, this red overridable message will turn green and become the overridden message. In this particular example, I had not yet clicked save, so it is still red. In order to quickly review what override message you have entered into that record, you can hover your cursor over the overridden message or the little blue eye icon, and it will bring up a pop-up so that you can quickly read what you've entered there. If you want to view it as part of this error list, click on the word overridden and it will actually drop it down underneath your error message so that you can actually see the history. In this case, this is the first message under that particular error. So you see just the one message. If there is a history because the unit record has been submitted and then reopened, you will then also see the reviewer's reject message there. And then once you enter an additional override message or make a correction, that history will then show up in that drop down. I will be going over in the next slide information about editing your comments. And if you see a little blue pencil off to the side, that means that particular message is editable by the original writer of that message. So let's move on to the next screen. As I mentioned, override comments are editable by the original writer, and that is prior to the submission of your unit record. Once that unit record has been submitted and reopened, then a new comment must be required. And this was a change that occurred because what we discovered is that we would come back with a reject comment, and then people would go back into that original message and try to edit that, which would shift it up to the top. We would lose the history, plus the unit record did not recognize that edited comment was new in response to the reject. So now what happens is once you have submitted that unit record and it's been reopened, a new comment must be added. And you'll notice here that there is no blue pencil, so that this comment cannot be edited. You will have to add a new override reason if you are responding to a reject comment. Okay. More information about this particular process is in chapter 3, page 42, and you'll see also more step-by-step screenshots that can help you with that. I also want to mention that we are offering a limited number of the online hands-on tutorials. So if you want to see that process, you know, we can set up a small group to do a tutorial for you. As Marla said, we experienced a number of Social Security number issues in this last year's unit record. There are a couple of ways to resolve those Social Security number differences. If that Social Security error originates in the unit record itself, you are able to click into that student's record and make that update from the details screen and save it. And that will adjust that student record and eliminate that error. Now, if the error is because the unit record has reported the correct Social Security number and the incorrect Social Security number exists in either Seesaw or one of the program records, that will require WASAC assistance. There is a button that says send us an email on many of your screens. Click on that. It will open up a secure email that comes to us by way of the portal secure email system. Provide us with information about the name of the student, the correct Social Security number clearly marked, the incorrect social security number also clearly marked. And the reason why the correction needs to be made. Sometimes there's a little bit more involved situation in which a student has actually two records in Seesaw. This sometimes happens with a transposed number, or if a student has more than one WASFA number, they may actually have been reported and received funds under both social security numbers, the incorrect one and the correct one. And that's where that additional information to explain what has occurred would be very helpful. It requires our IT to perform that person merge internally. And if that student has indeed been paid twice under each of those social security numbers, it will involve a return of funds to WASAC. I mentioned earlier the bulk override processing. This is available and allows you to select several records at the same time so that you can apply the same override comment to all of those records simultaneously. We caution you to be very judicious about how you apply those bulk overrides. First, we suggest that you select that particular error type so that you are at least talking about the same error for all of those records. And then make sure that you also have reviewed those records to ensure that the comment that you're going to place in that override actually applies to all of them, because some of them may have the same error code triggered, but there may be some circumstances that require slightly different handling or an explanation that is not your standard in order to explain that and have it be verified on our end. So be sure that when you perform a bulk override, that you actually are applying that override apples to apples and not apples and oranges together. So, and the way you would process a bulk override is you would select the individual records that you want to apply that override to. And you notice here I have pre-selected, in this case, cost of attendance minus ESC does not equal need. And then it will activate this override reason field where you can enter your information. And you'll notice that here it shows that 7 errors are being corrected because we see 7 errors on this screen. Now, if you find that this particular error applies to all of the records that are listed in this filtered process, you can click this little box next to the social security number in that header field, and it will select all of the records that show in that particular list. Okay, and that's where, you know, if you do that and then you find that, oh, this particular student that doesn't apply to, you can click that little check mark next to that student social number, and it will eliminate that checkbox and reduce this to 6. So you do have some flexibility in how you apply that. But once you have selected all of the records that you want to apply that particular override to, enter your override comment, click the button, and it will be applied to all of those records at once. And then all of these will turn to green override, overridden messages. If you find that you've applied that override message in error, you can delete those bulk overrides by clicking those selected records, and it will again highlight, but you can select this gray delete overrides button, and it will then remove those and return all of those to overridable. To search for an existing unit record, in order to edit it, instead of going through all of your list, if they are long, you would return to this upload screen, and there is a button for search students that will bring up this screen where you can drop in a comma separated Social Security list, and it will then populate that search field with all of the records that are within that comma separated list. Or you can search by a single element, and that can be a name, that can be a Social Security number. Say you're looking for a particular dollar amount, or a particular family size, or say whatever that search element is, you can drop it in here and it will populate the list with anything that has that element in it. Keep in mind that a number of these fields may have similar information, so you're not searching necessarily by column, you are searching by that whatever is in that record, and these are the fields that you can search by. Once you have addressed these, you can click this Go to Report, and it should take you back to that errors list. And in this case also, as you're working on those records, you'll notice that the Social Security number field is highlighted. So you would click on the individual records through that Social Security number in order to open the record and work on it. Once you're in that student record, you can edit in any one of these details and terms tabs. You can address errors in that errors tab. Once you have clicked save, you can return to the list. There's also the opportunity to delete that record. If you delete that record, I believe it will automatically return you to that error list. However, there is one caveat to this delete button, and that is that if that record has been auto-loaded to the unit record because it was not present in your original upload, that means that that record exists in WASAC records in Seesaw or in the program portal record, and that record cannot be deleted. If you need for it to be deleted, there probably is an error that exists that you are addressing. And in that, you would tell us, say you've taken all of these awards in terms, they all show 0. There's going to be errors here. Enter into that you are returning those funds to WASAC, because if there's an existing award and you're telling us that you did not award that student, that means those funds needs to come back to WASAC. So make sure that that's entered into that override comment, and let us know that you will be returning those funds and that record should be deleted after the unit record is finalized. And then we take care of deleting that after those funds have been returned to us. It will then square away with that discrepancy. It will show 0 awards, and then we'll be able to delete that record. You can also manually add a record. There may be a record for whom the student hasn't received state aid, but is still reportable. And there are a couple of places where you can do that. From this institutional errors screen, there is a gray add a record button. Or you can go back to this upload screen and click add record from that screen. It will open up a blank unit record, and you'll notice here that none of the fields have been completed. Make sure that if you're adding a student, that you thoroughly complete these and then click save before you leave. If there are any errors, you should immediately receive something in that error screen for you to address before you leave. And make sure that you click save after you have entered those corrections or added the override comments. At that point, you would go to the report, and from that main errors screen again, we suggest that you click this revalidate button periodically. And what that revalidate button does is it will reprocess all of your errors just to make sure that there was nothing that was missed in making those corrections. If you don't do that periodically while you're still working in this errors tab, before you get to the submit, we will reprocess errors at that point, and you may find errors that you need to come back and address in this errors tab. So we suggest doing it as you go in order to prevent that surprise at the end. You can also manually delete records if there's a student for whom you find they received no reportable aid, and they don't have an existing award in WASAC's records that needs to be repaid. You are able to delete that record. Go navigate to that student screen and click that gray delete button. It will ask you to confirm. And once you have confirmed, that record will disappear from the unit record. You have the ability to upload supplemental files, and those require the use of that valid CSV header as the top row of the file. And you must include complete student record information in each data row. In other words, you can't just add information where you want to put it. It must include complete field information. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in just a second. There are multiple types of changes that you can include in a single supplemental file. You can add a record or delete a record, or you can make edits to multiple records within that same supplemental file. So if you are editing an existing record, say you've realized that maybe you want to change the family income or add an additional ethnicity or something along that line, or change the value of an award or add an award, retain the full data for that student on that row and edit only the field that needs change. The reason for this is that the supplemental file will override existing data. So if you leave information out, that will override what's on the existing unit record already uploaded and could trigger additional errors. So be very careful that if you're editing a record that's already in the unit record, that that file row contains all of the existing information for that student. And we'll talk a little bit about creating the supplemental file a little bit later. One of the other caveats you need to understand is if the supplemental file had a successful upload, you cannot discard it. You must edit the records that you've added or changed from either the search or error screens, or you have to upload a compensating supplemental file that reverses all the changes that you made. Okay. If you find that your supplemental file upload was unsuccessful, you will see a download error file button at the bottom. And what that means is that that information from the supplemental file did not load. And it's providing you with an opportunity to identify what the errors were in that supplemental file so that you can make those corrections and reattempt using the try again button. Here is a cutaway partial example of the supplemental file. And that first column in all of our uploads is the isDelete column. And anything that has the word true or yes or why in it means that you are deleting that record or making an attempt to delete that record. If it says false, you are retaining that record. You are either adding that record or you are making a change to data within that record. After you've created the supplemental file, you would navigate to this upload screen, and there is a button that says Add File. And it is the Add File button, not Add Record. It's Add File. After clicking that button, it will bring you a screen that looks very similar to your initial upload, and it will say Add New File. It will allow you to browse your PC and find that upload file, and then click Start Upload. If it is successfully uploaded, you will see that message here. If there were critical errors, it will say unsuccessful, and then you will see that pink box with those download errors. As I mentioned, if it was an unsuccessful upload, I think in one of the previous screens, we talked about an unsuccessful upload, and there is that download report button, and then a try again button instead of continue. I want to talk a little bit about this delete all unit record data. If you see this button, I highly suggest that you not click it, because what it does is it will delete all of the information in your unit record file. So this is used only if you want to start over, altogether start over, delete all of the information that's in your unit record file. Once you have uploaded a file, we do retain some residual information, but in effect, all of the data that you entered is deleted. So this is only used if you want to start over, not with a supplemental file, but want to start over altogether by deleting all of the data that you've already entered. So I just wanted to mention that before we leave this screen. You can add an explanatory note for Wasatch staff to review after you have submitted the unit record report. There are several screens that have this add a note, and it will pop open this screen where you have an open field to provide us with any information that you feel is needed, whether it's general information about the unit record that you feel we need to know that provides us with information that may prevent questions coming back from what we've seen, either in a student record or in that program totals report that we'll talk about in a little bit. But this is the place that you can enter a note, save it, and it will come down here in the history. Right now it says new comment. After you have moved around in some of these and navigate back, it will have the name of the writer. But notes are editable and deletable by the original writer. So if you see these little buttons down here after you've entered and saved a note, that means that you are able to make a correction or add to the note that you've entered there. Once again, a different user cannot edit a note and, written by a different user. So, once you've added those, if you don't delete them, they are retained in the unit record history so that we have those whenever we're doing our reviews or later. If we need to refer back to something in that unit record year, we also use these note areas. You can see your own notes. You aren't able to see our notes, but we also utilize this feature in order to keep information for historical purposes. After you've addressed all of your edits, you will see this continue to review button pop up. That means that all of the errors have been addressed, and you can move on one additional step towards the submit process. Here you see the review button has activated, and in this preliminary program totals report, we ask that you look at the numbers, particularly in these last two columns. This would be this year's information. This is the previous year's information. It provides you with 4 years of comparison for the data that you've reported in each of these program fields. And if there are significant changes, you will see that highlighted. In this particular case, under federal work study, the amount did not change much, but the numbers, these are small numbers, so it shows as a large percentage change, but you see that the dollar amounts didn't change much, and this negative 6.6 is not highlighted. So anyway, make sure you review this. See if there's anything that surprises you or that you think may not be valid. If there is something that doesn't look like it resonates with your experience for the year in terms of the percentage change, that means you need to go back and take a look at your records and see if more extensive edits need to take place beyond what you saw in that original error screen. Another caveat for this report, as I mentioned, it is a preliminary totals report, which means that at this point in time, it's information for all of the records that are contained within the unit record. As we mentioned, there are certain records that you may be wanting us to remove at the end before we finalize, or there may be records that are what we consider extraneous in terms of records for which the student has not received even $1 of need-based aid. Those are eliminated before the final program totals report is run. So we do suggest that you keep a copy of this. There is a button to download a PDF. And the reason for that is when we're doing our reviews from year to year, we are looking at the preliminary totals report and comparing. Once the January final report is out, we suggest you also download a copy of that finals for comparison's sake, because sometimes there are differences and you need to know what those differences are. And we need to know what those differences are whenever we're talking to you about our reviews, because some of our questions may be answered by looking at those differences between the two reports. If everything appears to be correct, go ahead and click the confirm report button. It will then pop up with another one that says continue to submit. And so that's your opportunity to go back and take another look if you need to. But otherwise, that will move you forward to that submit navigation tab. Now, before you are ready to submit, you are asked to review all of the reports that are in this WCG, CBS, and Passport Differences report tab. And actually, there are 4 programs in there, not 3. We just added Bridge last year. And once you've clicked that, it will take you to a page with a drop down. And you can select which report you need to look at. So click through each of those, review them. And once you have reviewed those carefully, because what you may not realize is what you see here is what we see on the reviewer side for errors that we may be contacting you about. So take a close look at that. I believe I'll be showing you in the next screen a little bit more detail about each of those. But once you've reviewed them, and if they look correct, come back and click I've reviewed the report. Here's an example of the differences report for WCG. And you'll notice here, wherever it says yes, that means that you have entered some type of an override comment. And you can look at what your override comment was by clicking that little blue icon, and it will drop it into the list. But that means that you have provided us with some information about why that error exists. Instead of making a correction, you may be telling us that you're sending some money back. But in this particular case, there must be something more, because it's not talking about money coming back. You're asking us for more money than we show awarded. But anyway, take a look at each of those to see why that is on the differences report. If there is a no, that means that it is an unaddressed error, and we suggest that you go back into that record and take another look to see what needs to be addressed or commented on. And then when you go back through that process and look at this again, we would expect that you see a yes, because you've provided us with some type of response. Once you've reviewed this, you will return to that report summary. And once again, that comment that if you submit that unit record report with significant differences or questions that we still need some resolution about, we will reach out to you. So it is important that you know exactly what you see in that differences report. And truly, this is what you see come back to you with our notes whenever we revert a unit record and ask you questions. This is one of the screens that you will see. So after you've addressed all of those differences reports, come back, click to return to report summary, click I've reviewed the report, which will then activate the submit button. Once you've clicked that, it will ask you to confirm. And then if there are no additional errors that pop up in that reprocessing, you'll get a successfully submitted message, and that is success. So at that point, it comes to us for our review. There is a point in time report that I want to cover with you. It is located on the upload screen. We highly suggest that after you have submitted your report that you come back to this screen and download the report. This is the full report with all of your corrections and edits incorporated. So it is the final report that you have submitted to us. It does not contain your override comments, but it has all of the data in it. So we suggest that you make a copy of that and keep it in your files for referral. In case, you know, it's needed at some other point. This download report is also very helpful, as I mentioned, to create that supplemental file upload. It is what we call a point in time. So if you're working on your unit record anywhere in here and you want to know what that file looks like at that particular point in time, you can come to this upload page and download that report at any point in time. And that is where you might pick up that row of information for the student that you want to make an edit for. You can create that download report, copy that row, paste it into your supplemental file, and then save that. And you could create that supplemental file with a number of those individuals that you want to make changes for and make those edits. And then save that and then use that supplemental report to upload for those particular kinds of edits, you know, that bulk supplemental edit that you want to make. So this is an important report that we suggest that you keep because it does contain all of the information at the point in time, which is why it's important to have it after the submit, because it is all the information that you gave us. One additional piece of information, your reports are available to you immediately after submission. These top 3 reports, the demographic distribution report, program totals report, which at this point would be a preliminary until after January. And then all of those differences reports that you reviewed, you can download each and every one of those. Okay. And then you can keep those in your files as well. The profile reports you'll see are grayed out at this moment. And that is because until the unit records are all finalized and closed, those are not developed until we are able to finalize the entire unit record report. We notify you in January or at the time that we have those available. And when you come back to this screen at that point, you'll see that this profile reports is highlighted and is available for you to access these 4 reports: need-based aid recipients, state work study recipients, college grant, and college bound recipient profile reports. It's also possible to download all of these reports for prior years. If they are available from this drop-down list, you can go back at least 3 years prior to the current year and pick up these reports from this drop-down. With that, I believe we've concluded our main presentation, I'd like to open it up for any questions, if there are any.
I don't see any questions, Anne.
Yeah, I was just noticing I didn't see anything new. Go to this final slide. We ask you to review the unit record manual. It is available on our WASAC website at the URL that's shown there. The manual is there. A copy of the CSV header file is there. We will be posting 2 of the 3 recordings of the unit record training presentations there. And we expect that sometime within the next few days, we will have 2 of the 3 available. One of them for sure will be the co-presentation with the CTC link, PeopleSoft information with Stephanie Casino. And the other one will be one of the 2 other general unit record sessions. Our report team is available by email at unitrecord@wasac.wa.gov. All 5 of us will be monitoring that mailbox. And that is because if one or the other of us is unavailable, there is always someone there to be able to respond to you. So please reach out if you have any issues or experience difficulties, especially if you're having a problem with the portal or the portal training itself. We need to know that immediately so that we can send in a ticket to have that error corrected. But definitely at any point in time, we are here to help you and look forward to doing so over the next several weeks. If you need to speak with either Marla or myself directly, our phone numbers are there as well as our direct email addresses. We prefer, as I said, that you use the unit record mailbox because it is monitored by all of us in that review team. Marla, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I just want to thank everybody for their attention. And as Anne said, we're here for you. If you need anything, please let us know. And happy unit recording. Thank you all for your attention.
All righty. Take care. Bye-bye.